I got that chick on me right now. I got that chick on me right now. Yeah, hey. I got that chick on me. I got that chick on me right now. Yeah, hey, hey. Bees on a drip, please do not slip. And I don't want that jacket if it don't got slip. My diamond real VV, check on my red. Try to stay on, but I do not forget. Them day when a nigga ain't had shit. Them day when a nigga work double shift. That these niggas gon' be fake when I'm wrong. I can't stop doing these bitches wrong. I got ice like I'm frozen. Did this shit by my V long. Revenge stories all on my soul. I'ma win, that's on my soul. She wanna come to my show. Had to tell that little bit no. If you ain't want me way back then, don't try to hop on bandwagon. Yeah, Eliante just caught me a chain. Nessa go cop pinky ring. I'm on the road to $1 million. I do not care about the fame. Don't take a pill with my car. Why be here rub out the pain? You not on my level, little nigga. You are not in the frame.
What's up, guys? It's Marks here with another video today. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the ugly side of this business. Now, you usually only see, the upside, the checks that we post, the cars that we drive, the vacations we take, the people we hang around with. And you guys never really get to see the ugly side of this, whether it be deals falling through and things like that. You guys see the ugly side as far as us walking through ugly houses, but you don't really get to see the ugly side of this business. Now, first and foremost, I just want to say that if you're trying to get into this business just because you saw one of my checks or someone else's checks, I want to kind of caution you, because this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but at the same time, the most fulfilling thing that I've done, because it encompasses every single thing I was ever good at as far as my W-2 job, and I get to do it on my own terms. So if this is something that you want to do just because you saw a check, look into it first, see if this is actually going to be something for you, because this is not easy. It takes hard work, dedication, and it takes a lot of learning, and you're dealing with a lot of legal things. So definitely want to caution you guys that just see the checks and just see the glamour and want to jump in just because of that. Now, let me get off my soapbox. Basically today, like I said, I want to talk to you guys about the ugly side of the business, because you usually only get to see the fun stuff. Now, the first ugly side of this business is you never know when you're going to get your next check. That's something that you probably don't even think about when you see those big numbers. My first check was $8,000. At the end of the day, after paying other fees, it was $6,900. I didn't get my second deal for the next 2 months, which was a $2,000 check. And then after that, longer to get my third check, which ended up being one of the worst situations I've ever been in as far as being in real estate. Now, let me tell you a little bit about that scenario, because that is one of the ugliest sides of this business that I've been in. Okay, there we go. My camera was a little lopsided. But anyway, so my third deal was one of the ugliest things I've ever dealt with, because one, the house was ugly. I found it by driving for dollars. It was a burnt down house, and I ended up walking through the house because it had a bunch of openings. Contacted the owner, and he wanted a price that was a little bit too high for what the house was worth. Now, it had a lot of potential because of the area it was in, walking distance from downtown, but it was on the opposite side of the main street. All the investors are mainly buying on the other side, but there are some spilling over to this side doing new builds and so on and so forth. So there was plenty of potential. So he wanted $35,000, which was way too high for a fire damaged house. It was burnt to the ground dang near, and the lot was only worth maybe about $4 or $5 grand. So what I did was I used a strategy that I heard from Sean Terry, which was, if you feel like you can't lock it up at your price, let them know that, hey, I have a bunch of investors that I network with that may be interested at that price. Now, I'm not going to represent you, but what I can do is lock it up at this price and see if maybe one of them may take it off my hands. Sometimes they may pay me for bringing them something like this, but your 35 you will get if that's okay with you. We'll just put some contingencies in the contract just in case we don't get that number or anything that you're interested in. So we go through that, and I post the property, and I'm getting a bunch of feedback, but that is not good for me or the seller, because we're not going to sell it anywhere near that price that he's saying now, or that he wants. Again, this is only my third deal, and I've only done 2 other deals prior to this, so I'm a little new at using this strategy, and it's my first time dealing with a fire burnt house as well. We ended up backing out, not agreeing on the offers that were coming in, and I moved on, he moved on, I assume. So 2 months later, I ended up driving by the house again with my partner in the passenger seat, and he sees it, and I tell him the story. So he's like, you know what, I'll call him and I'll see if he maybe changed his mind. So he calls him, and the circumstances did change. His father just passed away. He didn't really feel like, thinking about putting in work on this house, even though it's been years since he's even been there. I'm kind of coaching him like, hey, say this, get it for this, because I know a few guys that want it at this, so if you get it at this, maybe we'll be okay. So he gets it at, I think around 10 grand. We end up, getting them to sign the contract. We signed as the buyers, and we end up putting it out there and finding, a dispositions team that ended up approaching us to JV on it. So we go to JV on this property, and, we sign, and shortly after I get a wire from this dispositions team. Now I asked them where this wire came from, and they told me it was a deposit. So I'm thinking, okay, these guys not only are good enough to get me a non-refundable deposit, which I had just heard about, but they also found a buyer that was going to buy it at a price where we were both going to get 11 grand, and we were going to be able to split 11 grand. So they get 11, we get 11. All in all, we're maybe going to get not really 11 at closing. We're going to get 6 because we already got 5. Fast forward to the real issue is we give all the information to the title company, to their title company, because they're on the disposition side, and it takes them maybe about a week, 2 weeks to get things done, and things have still not moved forward. Now, in my experience, it only takes about 1 to 2 to 3 days to get a title search done, and in my experience as well, title companies usually do title search first, and then they do everything else after that, start asking for payoffs, liens, and all the other stuff. So I kind of figured this was going to be a long process. So they asked me, hey, if I know somebody down here in my city, then go ahead and go for it. So I found one that I did my prior deal with, so we went with them. Now we turn in all the documents and everything's going good. They get the title search back in a few days, and it gets to the point where they're sending us out. They send the commitment, they send the HUD 1 for review, they send everything. But something kind of struck me as odd because the HUD 1 showed, the wrong value. So I asked them what's going on. They were confused about our contracts. Our seller contract, our JV contract, and the buyer's contract, they didn't understand. So eventually they told me to go ahead and get some of this stuff amended. So we had to sign amendment contracts because they didn't understand where my partner's name came from, where my name came from, where their name came from, who this buyer is, what's exactly going on, which kind of confused me because at that time I'm thinking title companies know the deal, but obviously I learned really quickly that they always don't. So had to sign an amendment saying who he was, who I was related to my company or the LLC, and who they were related to their LLC, and what we had to do with each other and what that buyer was. We basically had to put in an amendment. And we're going back and forth for so long that they finally say, hey, we're just not going to do this because we just don't like how this looks. Now, this has been 2 months into the process, and we end up jumping on the phone with their attorney that's at the office with the dispositions manager and myself, the manager of my company. So we're talking to him, and he still doesn't like what he's saying. He doesn't like what I'm saying. So he's just like, you know what? We're just going to cancel it. We don't want to do it. So we then send that contract over to another title company that would better equip us in a bigger city that's dealt with this before. Now at this time, we can't even get in contact with the buyer now anymore because they've already been told that the closing date was on a week prior, and the buyer ended up showing up, and I assumed that the title company told them their confusion, which made them confused. So they stopped answering their phone calls, and they eventually reached out to me to ask me to go ahead and contact this buyer to see if they're still on board. I contact them, I get a hold of them, tell them what's going on, and that's the last time either one of us had talked to them. I'm a little worried because prior to us moving the contract from their title company to mine to back to another one, I had got a deposit that I thought was a non-refundable deposit of 5 grand. So I'm thinking if she backs out, what happens with this deposit? Now that I know that it's not a non-refundable, it was actually earnest money because the title company was looking for that earnest money to release to move the contract, and there's no earnest money here. So they go looking for the earnest money, find out they wrote it to me. The buyer wrote it to me and wired it to my account. Now I'd never met this buyer, didn't know their name, so obviously there was some type of issue going on with the representative. Eventually, I ended up getting a text from the buyer saying, hey, I'm backing out and I want you to send me the $5,000 back. Now this is 2.5 months later. That $5,000 is long gone. So I'm a little worried at this point because, you know, even though I feel like this isn't my mistake, that was their mistake as the buyer, sending that to my wiring information that the title company should have, not the buyer. But nonetheless, I plan on, you know, doing something, closing this deal and getting it done, getting their money back. Now, she backs out, so me and the dispositions team try to get the property back out, but nobody wants it. And a few weeks later, I get a text saying, hey, now my attorney's involved. I kind of want that money back. He's going to send you some stuff. So he sends me something that basically says I was acting as fraud and she wants her money back because we couldn't sell the property and convey a title over to her. I was on the original contract as one of the buyers or the assigner. So this kind of struck me as odd because I was like, well, why is this happening? Why is she going that route? So I decided to do a countersuit rather than just, you know, paying the money back like I originally intended, or, you know, working some things out with her as I originally intended. After, you know, going back and forth on legal terms, you know, her sending, you know, small claims and me sending small claims and so on and so forth, they ended up stop coming. So I'm driving for dollars. You know, I forgot about that. I've closed multiple deals to the point where I've had my $30,000 a month. Everything is going good on my end. I'm thinking one of my rebuttals had already gone through. I'm driving for dollars in the same area. I just got a house under contract a few blocks away and I see that the house is demoed. Now, a week or two later, I see construction crews on that piece of land getting ready to build something. Something told me I already know who this buyer was, but I was like, no, it couldn't be. I look it up and it happened to be that buyer. Now, whenever they went ghost on us and stopped answering our phone calls, they were busy closing on this property behind our backs. And I know this because when I pulled up the information, I saw the closing date was the day we were supposed to close, but she had just never gotten back with us. And there was nothing I can do about it because my contract had expired. My contract was 30 days. The title company had the contract for 2 months. They were gonna honor it because they had it, which was fine. Once the actual contract moved from that title company that was gonna honor it to somewhere else, it was fair game at that point. And what you'll learn in this business is there are a lot of people that will shark you just because, like I said, you never know when your next check is going to come. So they'll do anything they can do to get, you know, that little 10, 15 grand, or the buyer in this case, save a few grand on going directly to the seller. Now that I go back by the property, I see, you know, 2 duplexes on it. You know, they're doing big things, and it rubs me the wrong way because I wanted to feel proud about actually, you know, being involved in that process. But, you know, things happen the way they happen for a reason. I still went on to be very prosperous and, you know, get my things done, even though that could have crippled me because that was in a time where it's been 2.5 months since I've had a deal, and the deal before that was only $2,000. So I'm to the point where I'm second guessing myself. Should I go back to work? Should I do this? But everything ended up working out. I kind of want to tell you guys this story because, like I said, you guys only get to see the glorious things. You only get to see the fun. You only get to see the checks. And I want to share this because I wanted to make it real that this is a real business. This is not something that you just do to get a check. This is blood, sweat, tears. You have to deal with legalities all the time, and kind of wanted to make it a point that it's not always rainbows and sunshine. So not trying to say this to scare anybody away from this game because, like I said, this is one of the things that I love, and probably always will love, even if I'm not the person that's doing all the work as far as data mining, cold calling, following up, going on appointments. I'm still going to be involved in this business in some type of way because to me it's an ATM machine, like my mentor says all the time. So basically that's what I want to tell you guys today. There's ugly sides of this business, so don't get it twisted thinking that this is just another thing that you can get into real quick and get out of unscathed. And again, like I'm saying, this is only for the people that kind of want to make this their business and not the people that are trying to get into it, you know, just to get a little supplement income. But I feel like if you get a little taste of this, you're not going to want it to be a supplement anymore. You're going to want to do this full time. That's basically what I had to tell you guys. Wanted to share my story on my experiences on the ugly side of this business. I hope that I gave you guys enough context And I hope that I help someone that's either going through this, whether they're in my position where, you know, they had a buyer go under them, or they're on the buyer side and they had a seller do some, you know, unethical stuff. Whatever the case may be, hopefully this story kind of touched you and it shines some light on both sides of this game. Now, like I always say, I appreciate you guys watching this. I appreciate your feedback. Make sure you leave in the comments what you want me to talk about next. If you have any questions for me, go ahead and leave it in the comments as well. And I want to say to everybody, I appreciate it. I really, really do appreciate you watching. And like I always say, until next time.
I got that check on me right now. I got that check on me. I got that check on me right now.